Hey everyone, welcome to the ninth episode of Faith Frequencies, where faith hits the airwaves. I'm joined by my co-host Lee Chandler and our special guest Shawna Webb. She has a very unique story and had an encounter with Jesus that you don't want to miss. How are you doing, Shawna?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing great.
Um, I think the way we're going to kick this off is we're just going to ask you to introduce yourself. I know you got a story or a testimony you want to get into, but right now just give us a little bit about yourself, information such as where you are, what you do for a living, your interests, things like that.
Okay. Well, my name's Shauna. I'm 24 years old. I live in North Georgia, kind of like in the mountain area. I'm a stay-at-home mom for a living. I guess you could say
That's
that.
a job.
Um, yeah, my husband he works super hard so that I can
Yeah.
stay at home with them. But I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son.
All right. All
Jason,
right.
I think this is our third guest, at least from Georgia. We're kind of
Yeah.
just getting started with these podcasts, but um, we're definitely representing Georgia with
Who
some
all
of
did we
these.
have? We had Mama T. We had Aaron, and then now her from Georgia.
And
Mama
this
T
is
was from Georgia, wasn't she?
Yeah, she is. And Shauna here, she's kind of a referral from Aaron. He
Yeah.
had a couple of people he wanted to send our way. So you're one of them, Shauna. So I'm going to let Jason lead with
Yeah,
letting you get into what you want to
go to
talk to about today.
Um. Well, let's just jump right into it. You want to go ahead and tell us your testimony, story, however, whatever you want to call it. There, we'll jump right into it.
That's fine. You want me to start from the beginning?
Sure.
Okay, so when I was 5, I had an encounter with Jesus, and this happened in Chatsworth, where I live at. It's a really like small town, but there's this highway, and this highway 225, and there's always like a lot of semi trucks and stuff that travel on this road. Um, but my mom, she had took me and my brother to an audition in Atlanta, and my brother was like 9 or 10 at the time. I was about to turn 5. So she took us to this audition, and on the way back home, she made it to Chatsworth. We were literally almost home, and her car ran out of gas.
Mm,
And for whatever reason, she didn't get gas. I don't know, but maybe she just passed it, thinking she could get to another one. Um, but she didn't get gas, and she ran out of gas. And like here's like the highway, and then there was like a driveway. Well, she managed to pull off into this driveway that was off of the actual highway itself. And she like called my dad, and my dad was like drunk that night because he was like an alcoholic when I was a kid. And he said that he would come help, but he was also drunk, so it took him a while to get there. And there was this one man who actually stopped, and he asked if we needed help, but my mom said like, no, my husband's on the way, whatever. And so this guy like left, but like looking back, I'm like, if she would have just said yes to this guy, like none of this, it wouldn't even be a story to tell. um
right.
but my dad, he brings us gas, puts it in the car, and as my mom is like digging through her purse in the front seat, I just hear this god awful sound. And I look out my back window, and I'm a little girl, and I look out my window, and as soon as I like turned and looked out my window, there was just headlights, and the sound that I was hearing was the brakes of the semi truck. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, but it's like super
Oh
loud.
yeah.
And so like as soon as I seen the headlights, I mean it just happened so fast. Like our car got hit. Um, the car flipped multiple times in the air, landed in this ditch, and the whole time I remained conscious. Like I never once passed out or anything like that. And when you get hit so hard like that, like everything just goes silent, like kind of like in a movie. Everything just went silent, and um, I remember seeing like my mom and my brother, because they were in the front, and they were like just colliding and like hitting each other, and like dirt was flying, glass was flying. It was just horrible. Like I remember all this even at 24 years old, I still remember all of it happening. So the car lands on the roof in a ditch, and I just remember looking around like, how am I going to get out of here? Like I didn't see any kind of opening or anything like that. And that is when Jesus himself came into the car, and uh, like so many people ask me, like, what did Jesus look like? And honestly, just so bright, so beautiful. Um, like in First John, it talks about how God is light, and in Him there's no darkness at all. And that is so like beyond true, because He is just so bright. And like when He came into the car, like all fear left. Like I was no longer afraid or anything. Like I just felt at home with Him. Like just creation being in the presence of the Creator, basically. Like
Yeah.
everything was just fine when He came into the picture. um but I've always wondered, He never talked to me like the whole time. He just came in and He pointed, and when He pointed His finger, um the like a opening like came about inside of the car, and that is how I knew to crawl out through that hole. And what's crazy is like there was no hole before He came in. So I like climbed out through this hole, climbed up the ditch, and I just remember looking down, and like my shoes were missing, my clothes were muddy. It was like raining that night. Um, it was just horrible, like a horrible situation. Like
Yeah.
this that we were in was really meant to be like my grave. Like we were never supposed to come out of there. Um, so I like climb out of the car, and when I get to the top of the ditch, I turn, and Jesus was there again. He was kind of like, I wouldn't say he was like standing there. He was kind of like floating in the sky, but not too far away, maybe like 10 foot away from the accident. And it was like raining, and like the horn of the truck was still going off. And Jesus was just standing there again. And on each side of Jesus, there were four angels. Like there were four angels on this side and four on this side. And that's when I heard my dad crying. And because my dad, he came and like put gas in the car. And
Yeah.
right after he put gas is when this happened. So he was actually in the road, and like he seen everything happen. So
Wow.
like he thought we were dead for sure. Like he was just, like he had his own like traumatizing moment, because he just was standing in the road, and see the semi truck come off the road and hit us.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Amazing story. It sounds
It is
like
an amazing story. I'm kind of
Jesus
jealous. You
made a
got to see
way.
Jesus. I didn't.
Jesus made a way where there was no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And it sounds like from what you saw, he was illuminated. Um,
Yeah.
he was radiant, and you didn't get to hear his voice, but you felt a comfort. A lot of times
Yeah.
when we read about angelic encounters in the Bible, people tend to have a fear, and the angels have to tell them not to fear. But because it was the Lord and Savior, or because you felt comfort, you it was Jesus. I've
Yeah.
when I ask questions, sometimes people think I'm challenging them, and I think that's what might come across if I ask you some of the questions I have. And it's an amazing story. And I don't want to ask you too hard of questions, but do you think that happened maybe because you were young enough to believe, like not anybody else could see that was there? You were the only one that saw it. Is that right?
Yeah, I've always thought that I was just so young and innocent, and that's why Jesus appeared to me. Because, like, I didn't know who He was at the time. Like, my family never had like took me to church or anything like that. So He just revealed Himself to me in that moment to show me, I think, that He was real, and so that I would grow up now and be a witness for Him. Like, I mean, it's not like every day that people can say, "Hey, like I know Jesus is real because I've seen Him."
Right. Did you ever tell anybody like at that age? Did you tell like your parents and stuff what you seen?
Yeah, so that's like the funny. It's kind of funny, like in like a weird way. So after the wreck, like we went to the hospital that night, and I had no injuries at all. Like just got hit by a semi truck, and I walked away with no injuries. And so the hospital let me go that same night. And my mom, she got released maybe like a week later, I think, because
Mm.
she had like a lot of injuries. My brother had injuries. Brother, even like his oxygen level, if it would have dropped, no, his body temperature, if it would have dropped like 1 more degree, he would have died. Um, and then my mom, she just had like a broken pelvis and stuff like that. Like, just, I mean, her arm was like completely mangled and like torn behind her body. It was just really bad stuff. But um, when my mom did finally get out of the hospital, um, my aunt or somebody like came over and they had a cross necklace on with Jesus on it. And my mom said that I like grabbed the necklace and I said, "This is the man who showed me how to get out of the car." And I said, and it was the man with the ring above his head. And when I seen Jesus, he had a crown above his head. So I couldn't explain the crown at that age, but I told them, hey, he had a ring above his head. And
Mm.
there was like no way I could have known that that man in the car was the man on the necklace.
Mm. How did they react to you when you told them that about that?
I mean, I don't remember them reacting because I was so young, but
Right.
um, just my mom, like they were all just like amazed, like, hearing that Jesus was there. And, like I tried to explain in a bunch of ways what I had seen, but it wasn't until like years later when I was able to finally talk and stuff that I told my mom, like, I met Jesus that night. Like Jesus came in the car, he's the one who showed me how to get out. And like I was able to explain more about like the angels and stuff.
Wow. Did did your parents go to church now after you told them this story?
Um, Not really. My mom, she's kind of, I would say, just kind of lukewarm. It
Right.
breaks my heart, but you would think that my brother too, him being in a car accident and like miraculously being saved and stuff too, but he's actually kind of atheist, and he thinks that I'm just crazy Jesus freak. Like he's kind of thought that about me like my whole life. So
Well, that's a shame because he is real.
yeah.
Uh,
And
I
my
I kind
dad,
of I kind of figured that they would after hearing that story that they would be more involved in church, but hey, not
yeah.
everybody reacts to things the same way. Like maybe one day it'll happen, maybe one day it won't.
Yeah, I know. Like my mom, she's a big believer. It's just like I can't not get her to come to church. Like I've tried for
Yeah.
years, and of course I'm gonna still pray for her and stuff. But she doesn't want to come to church, and I mean I can't force that. It's just in God's timing, I guess.
Yeah.
I will say though that my dad, like when I was a teenager, I kind of started going to church by myself in a youth group and stuff. And that's when I started praying for my dad to come to church with me. And like, he rejected me for like years. And this year, he finally started going to his own church. And he's like plugged in and he's serving there. And it's just like, wow. Like, so hopefully my
That's
mom
great.
will come later on.
Yeah, I think she will. I think she will. You got any questions, Lee?
Was that your first encounter with Jesus in the sense of the first you've ever heard of his name or just any exposure to Jesus? Like you kind of saw and had this real life encounter with Jesus before you'd heard anything, and you kind of recognized that he was the figure on the cross that you saw with the necklace or whatever. Um,
Yeah,
I'm
that
interested
was
in the angels. You said he was surrounded by four angels. Did they have human-like features? Is that a pretty vivid memory? Can you speak to that?
the only thing I remember specifically about the angels is just that it was four of them. It was like four on this side and then four on the other side of Jesus. And
Oh,
the
okay.
only thing I really remember them is just like their figure. Like I remember them being there, but I don't necessarily know what they looked like. Like it's just so weird because like I see it in my head and in my memory, but I just don't see any like faces to them.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge to your faith that this was an actual occurrence and not some kind of hallucination or just something in your imagination? Whether it's people that question you, hopefully that's not me right now, but just like when you've told about people, told this to people in your past experiences, or just as you've grown up, um, you might wonder if that really did happen. Is it still as true to you as it ever was? And has this been instrumental in you keeping your faith?
Yes. So I've always tried to explain to people like I feel like I've never really been able to connect with other Christians because they have to choose to have faith. But with me, it's like I have had faith my whole life because I've seen God and I know that He's real. Like there's no doubt about it. I've seen Him. And, I just have those memories in my mind. And just like, I know I was very young at the time, but the whole situation was just so traumatic that it kind of just permanently like stamped itself into my brain. Like I remember everything about that night.
Yeah.
Your testimony kind of reminds me of Mary Magdalene. She was the one that bore witness to Jesus's resurrection. She saw him resurrected and resurrected for him, and she was maybe one of the only people that did, if not the only person, and she was the first one. But it was her testimony that kind of made valid, everything about his resurrection. Now he did appear to his disciples after the fact, but you have to live with the fact that you had this encounter, and it's your testimony that others have to believe. They have to have an extra degree of faith because they didn't see it firsthand. And God likes to bless things like that. I think He
Oh yeah.
definitely blessed you with that encounter. But I think what you have can be used to increase other people's faith. I think that I'm afraid that, some might ridicule, because
Yeah.
you always have that when it comes to miracles, and just that's the nature of things. But I'd like to believe that this stuff really happens. I believe in the Bible 100%, and I believe Christ made appearances in the Old Testament and the New Testament after his
Yeah.
resurrection. I also think that there was angels that, appeared to people. And there's some times where it's called Christophany or Christol, something where an angel of God appeared, and that's interpreted to be Jesus. So
Yeah.
I think you're blessed, and I think you know God's going to use this testimony.
Yeah.
Amen.
Did how long after that? What age did you actually like start going to church?
So I guess this is kind of like part two of my testimony, like the rest
Yeah.
of the story. You would think that I would have grown up in church, like after that happened, but my parents, they divorced like a couple months after it. Um, and then my mom, she married this man, and he was actually super abusive. So
Mm.
I went, like, my dad, he was an alcoholic anyway. So, I kind of went from just a toxic situation into another one. And they never, like, my parents never went to church or anything like that. I would say I was probably like around 8 or 9 when I would just I started like waiting outside for the church bus,
Yeah.
and how I even like found out about the church to get on the church bus, I don't know, but I would just wait for the church bus to pick me up, and I was literally going to church by myself, and I just remember watching like Veggie Tales and stuff like that when I
That's pretty impressive though, being that young and taking yourself to church. That's pretty impressive.
I knew Jesus was real, like despite
Yeah.
what they, I was like, look, I know He's real, like I want to figure out who God is.
I think every time we do one of these podcasts, hopefully it's going to help a lot of people out there. But I have to believe that they help me too. Like every time we have a guest and we talk, I try to do it like an informal kind of conversation, even though we're
Yeah.
kind of putting it out there professionally. Um, with these discussions, everything buttresses my faith a little bit. Everything helps, reinforce what I believe. And my big takeaway from this testimony is Jesus is real, and he's always there with you. You might not see him ever again like that until, you know, after the end times or whatever, in heaven, whatnot, or when he comes back. But my takeaway from this is that he's real, that he and there's angels too. God uses angels a lot to help us, but God's always with us, and he can help us in some really serious situations. So that's kind of my takeaway from this. I know you firmly believe what happened to you, and I think your faith again is going to help others' faith, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
helped mine today too.
Amen.
How do you how did you understand what happened as a child? I mean, as a child, did you know that's what you seen, or did you think it was something else as a child, but as you got older you put it all together and realized what it was?
Yeah, I kind of put it all together when I was older. Like, I don't even know like how I ended up learning about Jesus. I guess it was probably through going to church and stuff like that. And then
Mhm.
I kind of put two and two together. Hey, like that was the same man, that rescued me. So
Yeah. What would you say? Because I'm sure there's been other people out there in the world, obviously, I'd say not very many, but have had that same experience or had experiences what you can't explain. What would you say to children or parents about faith and experiences that might seem unexplainable?
um probably just that, children are innocent. Like, I do believe this was not the only encounter I had with the spiritual realm as a child. Like, I had many other encounters with all kinds of stuff. I mean, like, there's these stories that my mom has told me that I seen as a child, and I'm like, wow. So, like, I just believe that children see things that adults can't see because, they're just so innocent and pure. And I mean, Jesus, he loves the little children. That's what the Bible says. And, uh, we're just, I don't know, we're just his creation. If he wants to appear to us when we're little, he will. And, he'll make something so horrible like that. Like, despite it being so traumatic, it was also the best night of my life. Like, I've always just, like, when I went through anything horrible in life, I would look back and be like, Jesus is real, like I can overcome anything because Jesus is real.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely
But
real.
I would say to parents, like it's very important to teach your children about Jesus because, like, I kind of like homeschool my kids and stuff too, but we do like Christian based homeschooling. And I mean, my 3 and 4 year old, they know so much about God and Jesus. And my 4 year old son, he's constantly telling me like these little dreams that he has of like spiritual stuff. And I'm always like, I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, but I always like try to believe him because I'm like, I seen so much at that same age. So,
Yeah, yeah, I believe stuff like that happens. I don't think we're anybody to underestimate the power of God. Like, I think that we've not even seen the true power of God yet. We've not seen it, and
we
I think
really
it's
have.
amazing. I think it's amazing that he made himself visible to you during that situation in your life. Um, and maybe it was a sign, and maybe you're doing exactly what you were supposed to do. You seen Jesus, your parents didn't. Maybe you're still. That's. I think that's. I think that was meant for you to see him and them not, and you try to talk them into going to church. Maybe it was supposed to help. You're supposed to help them get closer to God, and they're not there yet. But I think that they will.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
My
we can't.
brother, I
What
seen
is
him
it?
last night. I got a fly over here, but my brother, he was supposed to like go to church this morning or something. He told me that last night, and I was like, wow, like he's kind of like borderline like atheist. So I was like, you're gonna go to church? Like, I was really shocked. So I don't know if he went, but
That's good. That's good. Um, do you have a regular church that you attend?
Yeah, so me and Aaron, we actually go to the same church. It's Lifegate Church.
Okay. I think that's a church that's been mentioned on here before too, isn't it, Lee?
Yeah, well, she said that's the church Aaron goes to.
Oh, is it?
So, yeah, I think that's what she just said.
Okay. Okay. What how long have you been going there?
Since like November, so I haven't been going there for too long, but I was at a church, a small church before this one for like 5 years.
Yeah. What have you ever like besides seeing Jesus, do you ever hear like God talk to you or things like that?
I mean, not like the not like the audible voice of God. I mean, I hear
Right.
like the Holy Spirit, but
Right.
um like dreams and visions. I tend to have like a lot of dreams. A couple months ago, I had a dream of the rapture where I talked to Jesus in heaven, and I mean, it's so. I mean, I guess I kind of like stay in communion with him, but
Yeah. Uh have you ever had one of them dreams and like whatever you dreamed about like happened later on?
um, not really,
I've
not
experienced
yet. Maybe
that.
future, hopefully.
I kind of have
I've
to.
experienced that one.
It's amazing how God can work in a number of ways. You said
Yeah.
you've had other kinds of spiritual experiences. Some of our previous guests have indicated, spiritual presences. They weren't always good, so there are spiritual aspects to things, but it's always a blessing to have the presence of God. I know I like to feel the presence of God and the Holy Spirit. Um,
Yes.
I want to tie in at this point, a couple of verses that came to mind. They're related verses, Matthew and Mark. Truly, I tell you, he said, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. That's Matthew 18:3 and Mark 10:15. Truly, I tell you, anyone who does not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. And we are conditioned as we grow up and mature and become adults to just kind of walk by sight and not by faith. But we have to keep in mind that we need to believe. We need to have faith for things before we see them. So this is a refreshing message. It's one it is hard to believe, but I choose to believe it by faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, I do too. Uh do you think that you would have ended up going to church and stuff like that had you never seen that?
I have no idea.
No. I don't know.
I
It's
think with
awesome.
the environment in, I would probably say no, because
Right.
like, I mean, even I got this abusive stepdad, and just like we did like so much demonic stuff. Like I always tell people, like I had encounters with like demons that were living in my house when I was probably like 10 years old to like 13 years old. I have all these memories of just being tormented in my own house, like at nighttime, and just really, really freaky stuff happening. And like we used to play like the Ouija board, and um, our house like burnt down on Christmas Eve. We had to escape this house fire. Like just so much evil stuff happened to me. Like despite that encounter with Jesus, I still went on, and the devil was like, I guess, just really after me, and he. I don't know. I've had so many like times where I should have died, but God has graciously kept me alive.
Yeah.
Didn't you say backstage before we went on that you were under some kind of spiritual attack today, and it might be related to the fact that you wanted to bring this message here today?
So, this is probably like my fifth time sharing my testimony like publicly. Like I've always kept it kind of like to myself my whole life because I didn't really think, that people would. I don't know. I just never thought it was like important to share. And when I started going to Lifegate Church 6 months ago, I actually told my testimony for the first time on a podcast with my friend Shane Franks. And and Aaron, like, he told his on the same podcast too. So that was like the first time that I was really like, wow, like, I seen Jesus, and maybe people do need to hear about this. And so just every time I've went to share it, like, it's just so heavy. Like, this testimony, it's so heavy. Like, I feel the heaviness on my shoulders, like, before I tell it every time.
Yeah.
But and I always just get spiritually attacked, like, the whole day of or the week of, before I share it.
Yeah, Satan can do that. He can attack. He don't want that story to come out, and it happens to a lot of people that start to share what God has done in their life, or how He's appeared, or how He's communicated. Uh, he attacks them. He doesn't want them to. He doesn't want them to share that to other people. Um, so I think it's great. I think it's great that you got the opportunity to see Jesus. That's just awesome. Like, again, I say we should never underestimate the power of God. Uh, Faith can move mountains. Yeah, I don't think we're anybody to underestimate the power of God. You said you go to LifeGate. Can you tell us, like, when your services are, what time? Talk about LifeGate a little bit, what you like about it.
So I love Lifegate because it's just a really big church, and I was actually kind of scared of like big churches at first, because I thought, hey, there's probably going to be like a lot of like wolves in sheep clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So God, he like really called me to go to Lifegate. Like, I literally like just felt like the calling to go there, and then I started getting confirmation to why I should go there. Like, it was just really weird, like how I started going there. But we have Sunday is at 10:30 a.m. and Wednesday is at 6:30. And on Wednesday we have so many different life groups. Like, there's like mom's life group, or married couple life group, deliverance life group. Like, there's just so many different ones. And they're all just really like encouraging and like uplifting, like Bible studies. And I have grown like tremendously in the 6 months that I've been going there.
So there's plenty of opportunities for everybody that goes there to get involved.
Yes, like, there's even stuff for widows and single people. I mean, just something for literally everyone.
That's great. That's great. I think that's really good for a church to have all that stuff, because it keeps people throughout the week, instead of hanging out with their friends that don't go to church and stuff like that. It keeps you around faithful people. And I think you do constantly need that in life, because it's so tempting to stray off and follow your friends that don't go to church.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been in that boat
They're
before.
really big about like spiritual gifts and stuff at Lifegate too. And so I've just been like, over this last 6 months, like, I was in a class called Purpose. And I don't know, this class was probably like 3 months long, where I was like praying and seeking God for like what my purpose is in life. And like, he revealed like what gifts I have of the Spirit through that class. And so that's what I'm like currently working on, is how to like operate in these gifts of the Spirit, and just overall just learning and growing.
What denomination is that church? Is it non-denominational, or is it?
Church of God.
It's Pentecostal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I go to a Pentecostal church too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Some people, like, I guess, kind of like shame on them, because I guess they can
no.
like be like religious type sometimes, but this one's like not religious at all. Like, we're all about relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. I don't understand denominations, anyways. I mean, I
Yeah.
really, I think all denominations are how people would interpret the Bible in different ways. I think that's just how they became about, and there wasn't denominations when thousands of years ago. There wasn't. Everybody was a Christian, and that's how it was. So
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. I like the sounds of your church. If I was in Georgia, I believe that's where I would be going.
Yeah.
Anything else, Lee?
I'd like to thank you for coming on here and sharing your story, your testimony, your message. I know you We didn't have to track you down. You were willing to do this. I think you want to get your story out there. And I don't want to replicate Jason's question where he asked, what you would say to people that are striving with faith and things like that. But and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but is there a message? This is your platform right here for you to address to the world or just our audience right here, whoever's going to be listening. What does God want people to know? I know that's a loaded question. That's
If
a
I
big one.
know when you put me on the spot, but I would just say, like the message behind this testimony is that Jesus is alive and he is real, like I am a witness to seeing him. Um, I know a lot of people like struggle with their faith and stuff like that, but like I said, I've never had a struggle like with my faith. Like there is a fly that has been attacking me, so I'm sorry. I'm over here.
There's your spiritual attack. The Lord of the Flies
Yeah,
is
send the
attacking you.
flies.
But Jesus was in the car with you. Is that right? Like at first he was like in the vehicle. Am I hearing
Who?
that right? Jesus, like when you first saw him, was he outside the vehicle or was he inside the vehicle?
No, so like the car was upside down and I didn't know how to get out, and that's when Jesus appeared to me in the vehicle.
In the vehicle. So he met you where you were at a place that would be impossible to get into. And that's what Jesus does. He meets us where we're at our hardest times sometimes. And I'm really encouraged by this. So
And then he also, something else that was impossible. Remember, she looked around and couldn't find a way out. And then he pointed towards a opening that wasn't there before.
he is the way.
Yeah. He leads the
Yeah.
way, obviously, right there.
I mean, like, even I guess they took like the car to like the wrecker spot or something like that. I don't know what it's called, but like where they take it when it's completely like demolished or totaled. And like
Uh-huh.
some of my family members, like my dad's brother, like my uncle and stuff, they all went to go see it. And when they like came to see my mom at the hospital, they were like, "Oh yeah, there's no way y'all should have survived." Like especially because the car was sitting still and then it got hit at like 60, 70 miles an hour by a semi. They were just like, this is impossible. But I mean, literally nothing is impossible for God.
No.
I had a similar experience where there was a smashed car where I shouldn't have crawled out from, but I did. I believe in that kind of thing. I believe that God does protect us. Sometimes we go through things, we're wondering where God is, but He's definitely real, and He knows what He's doing when He does let us go through stuff. He always gets us through.
Yeah. Well, we're going to close out here. I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. It's a unique story for real. I mean, it is. You don't hear that all the time, but I believe it. I believe that God can do anything that He wants to, and if He wants to put His son in a car when it's wrecked and help somebody get out. I believe He can do that. He's done way bigger stuff than that in the past, and I don't think He ever is going to stop doing amazing things. So we do appreciate you sharing your story today. Um, I think that I would love to see if somebody else has had a similar experience and sees this video and then reaches out to either you or us. I think that would be cool. Then you guys could talk about the same experience and be fun to do. But again, we appreciate you sharing your story, and we're going to hop off here. And you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you guys for letting me share it too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
You have a blessed one.
You too.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.